For your first assignment, we're going to create this Nuka grenade. This is from Fallout 4. This is a prop recreation that was sold on Etsy. I thought was a really good piece of reference. For this, I'm going to provide you with a lot of images that will help you. Some are props that people have made, enthusiasts. This is a still from the game in terms of the selection screen for this type of grenade. And the reason I chose this, it's pretty straightforward in terms of the extended primitives that make up this. It's a nice assemblage of those. We've got kind of capsule shapes at the base, cylindrical form, spherical form. We've got some inserted pieces here that are, cylinders with a little bit of a fillet border around it as an insert. We've got these little struts here that helps, support the upper and lower structure, and then we've got these ribs that help protect this core structure of the explosive. Some fasteners, weld seams. That would be more if it was like, folded metal together like you would see on the ends of oil drums. Then we've got the safety catch and the fuse here. Pretty much just tube objects, a little bit of slightly modeled primitives and things like that. But in terms of, surface development, we're going to get into that a little later. There are also some models on Sketchfab that I'm going to share with you that other artists have already created. This is an object that's on Sketchfab. It's been mapped. Some decent results. If we take a look, press 5, this is Polygon Display. This artist is using 20 sides around. I would prefer that you work in multiples of 4. It's not some sort of etched in stone rule, but when it comes to subdivisions, when you subdivide something, 1 polygon becomes 4. So if you keep this in your mind that you can work in multiples of 4, sometimes 6 is fine too. It's just a good standard by which to measure things. This particular artist didn't include these kind of fillet surfaces that act as beads that hold these base pins in place. They used two edges on a bevel, which really for a game resolution asset you shouldn't have to do that. That's something that you start to develop in the high resolution object. But you can see that some of the low relief things like this, the screw mounts for these little struts that help reinforce the upper and lower portions of this are done in normal maps. The mapping results, this is 4 on the keyboard as a hotkey. We're not going to do anything like this. You can see this was done more with a kind of mapping system that doesn't account for squares. It's even, but it's not really straight, almost like an organic model. And hard surface modeling, because we're using straight edges, decals, things like that. It's always a good idea in a working practice to keep your UV layouts as straight as possible. So this would be something that I would avoid. Let's go back to 1, which is the final render. 2 is the base color. You can see some decent results. This particular artist created this model. Modeling wise, there are some nice results. It's pretty straightforward. Fewer bevels, especially around the top, but you can see that normal mapping takes care of a lot of that. That's the whole point of good UV layouts, good normal maps. I'll talk about what is going on this when we get into surface development. This particular model is downloadable as well. You're free to download this model, but don't use this as a basis to model things. Use it as a reference. Here is the model downloaded. We're going to be creating our own. As is mentioned in the documentation, never use 3D work and pass it off as your own, of course. At best, just use it as a scale reference. It's not really set to the scale that I want to use. Some things are a little bit off in the proportion of things. What we're going to end up using as our scale reference is going to be this image, because this is from the game. And it's a straightforward image. This is a symmetrical object. It runs mainly along one axis, and it's a good object to get started with this whole process to build from scratch, to develop, to retopologize, to map, and then to create surfaces.